everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Kristen Miner. I am the Deputy Director of Historical Resources with the Manatee County Clerk of the Circuit Court and Comptroller's Office. At Manatee Village Historical Park, our mission is to preserve and share the heritage of Manatee County's founding period. We are excited to rededicate this marker today and to share the legacy of Florida's cattlemen, a heritage that we promote year-round through our exhibits and our programming. Today, we are fortunate to have several people with us who have played important roles in preserving this pivotal part of our local history. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Manatee Clerk of the Circuit Court and Comptroller, Angelina Coloniso.
Thank you and good morning. If you'll indulge me, I'd like to give a tiny bit of the background of the Florida Cracker Trail. The Florida Cracker Trail ride traces Florida's earliest cattle industry, which began in the 1500s when Spanish explorers brought cattle and horses to the region. The term cracker refers to the cracking sound of the long bullwhips used by Florida cow hunters. Today, we rededicate this historical marker erected in 1988 by the Manatee County Historical Commission to commemorate one of the oldest cattle ranching traditions in North America, predating the Wild West by centuries. Skilled horsemen who worked in swamps, palmetto scrub, and pine flatwoods, cow hunters developed a unique ranching culture adapted to Florida's environment. The modern trail ride event began in 1988, organized to preserve and honor Florida's disappearing cattle heritage. The Florida Cracker Trail ride reminds people that Florida's history isn't only beaches and theme parks, it's also working landscapes, ranch life, rural resilience. It highlights Florida as the cattle state with deep agricultural roots. We are so proud to highlight the Cracker Trail, bringing Florida's rich history to life for new generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Coloniso. Next, we have the honor of welcoming District 1 Commissioner Carol Ann Feltz.
Thank you very much. This is part of my heart and history. I'm an 8th generation native Floridian. My families came from the Bahamas to Key West to Manatee County. And as I say, they were the first cracked conchs. They went from being shipbuilders and seamen to becoming cattle ranchers and ran their cows where Morgan Johnson Road is today. That would be the Curry family, and you'll see some other historical markers in this area here reflecting that history of those first settlers here. It's more important than ever today that we remember what Manatee County was built and made of. Our agricultural supplies, resources are the most important part to our nation's defense. Having food to eat and clean water to drink is the basis of any civilization. And as we're being encroached by development, we can't forget our roots here in Manatee County. We have 3 pillars, thank you. We have 3 pillars of our Manatee County economy. And number 1 is still agriculture. Number 2 is new construction. And number 3 is tourism. We can't have one without the other. We have a rich heritage here, and you have to go back in time, which is what this ride signifies. This ride has gone on for many, many years, and it started with a group of cattlemen that had actually participated in the drives from the 1930s. And they decided one day, we see what's happening, so let's see if we could create this one more time. So they got on their Winnebagos and campers and things like that and traversed the state. Then it became something that people wanted to do, and they wanted to do it on horseback again. So it started off with a small group of people. It was a word of mouth thing. It was something that was done out of genuine interest, genuine heartfelt concern for the land, for the people, and for a way of life. That has gone on. I think we're almost got to be close to 40 years now. Things have changed so much. But at the same time, you know what hasn't changed? People have to eat. The cattle industry in Florida is not dead. We just had a cattle drive down in Lake Okeechobee. There are still people out there that value an agricultural lifestyle, whether it's a large farming corporate concern or it's what we call those 5-acre cowboys. Those people are keeping our water, they're keeping our food, they're keeping a way of life that has substance and sustainability that we all need. So this ride has changed so much. When I first started doing the ride years and years ago, first off, I learned to crack a whip, which has become my trademark here. But it was a matter of you don't really know what you're made of until you're out in the world with nothing but a horse and what you can carry. And back in the day when we started this, there weren't fancy horse trailers. Right now you have horse trailers that are like a mini Winnebago, right? And they're air conditioned and they've got TVs on the outside and all that kind of stuff. When we started this, a lot of people came in stock trailers. A lot of people just had their stock trailers, dropped off the horses, and that was the last time you saw anything on wheels for 120 miles. And we didn't have water wagons. We just dealt with whatever water we could get out of the side of the road and in ditches or ponds or streams. We didn't have a caterer. And that was one of my favorite parts of doing the ride, because it was kind of fun to have 3 meals a day served by a bunch of men to you. And all you had to worry about was you and your horse. And I've ridden a couple different horses across the state. My first horse did the first 3 years. Then I got a younger horse, and he lamed out on the ride. And what we do is, as we're going down the road, we have a pickup wagon that follows us. The pickup wagon is for distressed horses, not distressed riders. You're on your own with that. But that pickup wagon will follow along, and if you have any of a distressed horse, the horse gets loaded in the wagon. So one year, I had a 2-year-old, and which is like having a 2-year-old kid in horsedom. And he lamed out just outside of Kibler Ranch. So I had to go all the way back to Parrish and trade him in for another model, a horse I had never seen before in my life, had never ridden before in my life. And that horse was owned by a woman who was serving our country in Afghanistan. And while she was serving our country in Afghanistan, I was riding her horse across this state. I think I cried the whole way. It was, but in the meantime, with switching horses, we had a distressed rider, so nobody was riding his horse. It was being ponied. And they said, well, why don't you jump on this one? And it was a Peruvian Pasifino with a McClellan saddle on, because it was very authentic. A McClellan saddle is not the most comfortable thing you've ever been in. And then she said, well, why don't you try my horse, which was a Colombian Pasifino. I'm a quarter horse girl. But at least she didn't have the McClellan saddle on. But it was killer. I could not have done that. But I've had so many good stories to tell, so many wonderful people that I've met on this ride. And my horses are retired, but I work very hard to make sure that we remember the past, because it's what we were built on here in Manatee County, that we preserve it and we preserve our agricultural heritage here, because not everybody wants to live in a cookie cutter house, in a gated subdivision, in an apartment, or even on the beach. And we can't ignore our heritage in Manatee County. We have to be able to provide that, and it's not just for us. I do not like being called a farmer, a rancher. I don't even consider myself a horsewoman at this point. I'm a hay burner feeder. And but I want my open spaces. I need my open spaces. You need my open spaces. And this is what that's about. Don't forget where you came from, because you never know where you could go. And we've come a long way in our industry here, but some things just have to be done from the ground up. And this is what we're honoring. Those people who are still willing to do the work to put food in your mouth, whether it comes from a 5-acre cowboy or Likes Brothers or Alico or any of these places. It starts here in Manatee County, and we can't let anybody forget that. Thank you. And I'm not allowed to do this today, but I might wander across the street. So in honor of the 39th anniversary of the Florida Cracker Trail annual ride, we rededicate our Manatee Avenue Highway 64 sign honoring the Florida Cracker Trail.
We're rededicating a marker. I don't know if people noticed the marker driving down 64 to the Florida Cracker Trail. They're going to give some history about that. The cracker word came from the cracking of the whips from getting the cows herded across Florida. So I'll let them speak for the detailed history of it. But it's very exciting today because we're going to have a picnic celebrating this. And then they're going to be taking their ride eventually to the Cracker Trail across the state to Fort Pierce. This celebrates Florida's cattle industry and the rich heritage of cattle industry. We have a Maritime Museum. Currently it's closed because they're working on it. That celebrates, we are one of the last commercial fishing villages in the state of Florida. And we also have this site and then the Historic Records Library. And this is Pioneer, Florida. This is where it all started, the dream of preserving our local history. And the clerk's office is always the keeper of the records. We manage the parks. So it's worked out very well. I cannot say enough about the talent that is working in our parks, our museums. They are such skilled people, such skilled curators. We do a lot with minimal, with very little, and we have been doubling and tripling our attendance records in the last several years. So there's definitely an interest, and I love it that people bring their kids out and learn about history. We share the sites. The sites have their own promotional and their own logos, and we share that on our website. When I go out and talk, I talk about them, and I promote that, and it goes over very well. People believe strongly, and we're unique in that respect in Manatee County, and Manatee County can take a lot of pride in that fact, that we have this unique relationship that works. It is the envy of other counties how it works so well to preserve local history and have these sites so well done and organized with the events. They put such skill and detail in. Speaker series, there's something for everyone. For us to host the events like this, it is an honor actually to be a part of something like this. I love history. I love that the Cracker Trail riders are here. They're going to be here and riding out from here. It just kind of gives you goosebumps to see it because they're bringing history to life for new generations, and we can't lose that. We can't forget that, and it's a wonderful feeling.
The Florida Cracker Trail ride is not actually a trail ride. It is a historical reenactment minus the cattle. So Florida has rich history from Manatee County to St. Lucie County, Fort Pierce. They would drive cows from the Spanish started it. They would drive cattle from Fort Pierce to Bradenton, Manatee County, for almost 500 years. So cattle were introduced to Florida before any other state in the Union. So the idea was by the founders of the association that they would get the Florida Cracker Trail on the map as a historical trail where they drove cattle. So we reenact that every year, riding horses from Bradenton to Fort Pierce, representing the history of Florida. and that's how it got started. It's about 120 miles what we ride, and we've had as many as 220 people down to 60 people. This year we'll probably have 115 or 120 or so riders. We'll still have more than that just go along in a support system. But it's still doing very well. People are interested in what we do. They see the horses on the side of the road. We now have a police escort, so it's pretty organized. So we start on Sunday and we finish up on the following Friday. We ride about, we start off 14-mile day. That it picks up 20, 22, 23 miles. And then we end up in Fort Pierce on Friday night, right inside St. Lucie County, and then that's the end of that's the actual end of the ride. And then on Saturday morning we haul into Fort Pierce and do a fantastic parade on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. We have a water wagon that we pull with us. We have our own supply of water. It holds 1,000 gallons. We go through that about 3 times a day. With horses will drink about 10 gallons of water when they're working. At a sitting, basically. And then we have portalets we pull along with us. We have a caterer that falls along with us. And we have a stock trailer we pull along with us to pick up any horses that might have any injury. One of the things that we cross the Kissimmee River at Edna Pierce Lockett Estate. Now that is really critical because at one point she was one of the first businesswomen in Florida, and she had a barge that would haul cattle across the Kissimmee River. And that one time was part of Manatee County back before they started dividing the counties. Manatee County was huge. I like that day because we crossed that bridge. So both lanes of traffic are closed. Edna Pierce Lockett Estate is right there where we have our lunch at. And it's just a great day to slow down and realize the rich history that you have. We're riding down roads that were cattle trails. So now they're paved and people are, doing 80 mile an hour on their vehicles. And we slow down to a 3.5 mile pace with horseback. And you get to see so much more. And so for me, that's one of my best days. I like that day because it's just, you have to take so much more time crossing that bridge. So I like that day. So when I started this ride, when I rode the first time in 1991, a couple of buddies of mine that were day workers, cattle workers, we rode along just because of the history of it. And after 3 days, they were like, I'm never doing this again. And I was like, are you kidding? I'm going to be doing this repeatedly. I like this. So I came up with this phrase that the Florida Cracker Trail, it would either get in you or to get on you. So I was just a young guy, so my kids followed along with me. So my oldest daughter was now she's 36. My second that's still riding with me, Michaela, she's 27. She's been riding since she's a kid. And my 20-year-old been riding since he was 4 years old. So we're very family oriented. So children have learned. My kids, we didn't plan out vacations for summertime. And it sounds strange because they'd go to school and tell people, we're going to be going on the Cracker Trail. They didn't talk about Disney World. This is the whole thing all year was about Cracker Trail. My kids have quit jobs that wouldn't let them off for the Cracker Trail. So it is a great experience. And if anyone would like to have any more ideas, you can go on YouTube and look up the Florida Cracker Trail Association. We got videos on YouTube that shows the rides. FloridaCrackerTrail.org. We have our website there. But it's just a historical thing where you can bring you and your horse, get away for, a week, and slow down and slow the pace and enjoy that. You find out how good your horse is or how unruly he may be. My favorite part about the trail ride is knowing that it's just so deep-seated in our history that it's, and you get to spend a whole week with your horse, with your family, that comes along. But it's the camaraderie. It's you're away from technology. No TVs. No, Of course, everyone's got phones now, but there was no internet. There was nothing. It was just you and your horse and your family. And your kids came along. It made it pretty. It was a week. I say it's the fastest week on dirt because it goes so fast.
This highway was designated a Millennium Trail as well back in the 80s, and it was the path that the cracker cows and the cracker cowboys brought the cows to be loaded onto ships and sent to Cuba as part of our first international trade and part of the basics of agriculture that were practiced and formed Manatee County. This was a county that was founded on agriculture. It still is a very large part of our industry. It's an economic pillar of our county. Our three economic pillars being agriculture, tourism, and new construction. Agriculture is the one constant that we all need because agriculture is what feeds you. And if it wasn't for our agriculture, we wouldn't have people moving here because we have the supply of seafood. We start the beef here. We have our vegetables. We could grow anything year round. And this promotes of our other industries. So it's the core practice and the historical practice of Manatee County was our agricultural base. And it's now more important than ever. This is a whip. And the reason that whips were used in Florida, again, we had our cowboys, or as we call them, cow hunters and cowmen, in Florida well before when Texas was still part of Mexico. But people usually think of cowboys as roping and with a rope. You can't really do that in Florida because we have trees. And this is why we are called crackers, because of the crack of the whip. The crack of the whip was used to pop those cows out of the palmettos. You didn't throw a rope. You drove cows and you used dogs because of the terrain here. So it was also used as a communication device. If you wanted to call for help, you cracked your whip 3 times. And so that was our first telegraph system. And so today, you'll see a lot of fancy whip poppers on the Cracker Trail, but in actual practice, there's the show, and then there's actual practice. You're more like just dragging, on the cows. You don't use it on the cow's hide or anything like that. It's basically to make a noise. So when I started with it, it was just a kind of a word of mouth thing, right? I wasn't brought up with horses. I rode anything I could, but I bought my first horse and really didn't know about this. And I didn't even know about my own heritage at the time. And so it was kind of a word of mouth thing within about the 5 counties that we go through. So back then we started with people who was word of mouth. The world was different. If you wanted to put 50 horses on the road and ride down the road, and to this day, horses are considered transportation. So you can get on a horse and ride it wherever you want. But we didn't require all of the accoutrements. You got your water from the side of the road. You camped in a tent, or you brought your horses in a stock trailer. But that grew and grew until we found that people were interested, just like me. They found their own history, or they had moved here and embraced our history. And so for this ride to go on for 39 years, no matter what has changed between here and the other side of the state, we have found a way to make it through, is quite a daunting task. And we have kids. This is one of the things we just talked about. Kids that were kids when I started doing this ride, they are now running the ride. So it is absolutely generational. And that's, I think, the thing I'm most proudest of, that we are keeping history alive through many generations now.